Hi and welcome to our next part of our Revit tutorial. This time it's all about how to create an element, an object, a component. And before we dig deep into Revit, let's check out the theory first. And every object in Revit is of 4 tiers: the category, the family, the type, and the instance. The category is basically a brief description of your element or your object. A stair, a wall, a door, a window, a beam. This is a category. But each category might have different construction types within it. For example, a door, the category, might have a wooden door, a steel door, a glass door, whatever. So there comes in the family. The family is always distinguished by its construction type. Next up is a type. And the type is the same category, door, the same family, a steel door in this case, but with different dimensions. The width and the height might differ. So every time you have a door, a steel door, which might be a bit higher or a bit wider, it would be of a different type. And the last tier is the instance. And the instance is basically the very object you have placed within your model. So you have a room and you place a door in there. This is an instance. When you place another door in there, this is another instance, but maybe of the same family and the same type. But what distinguishes those two doors from one another are the individual attributes, like the door number. The first door might have the number 1, the second door might have the number 2. So the instance is distinguished by its individual attributes. What I just told you is basically the idea behind a family. 4 tiers goes always for a family, which are doors, windows, lighting fixtures, that kind of stuff. But they are not only families in Revit, they are also system families. And a system family is a wall, is a slab, it's a roof. And how to notice when you're working with a family and a system family? It's basically where you have created it. A family you will always create within a family editor, whereas a system family, like a wall, you will always create within the project environment. And another difference is between a family and a system family is the family has 4 tiers and the system family has 3 tiers. Let's take a look at it. So let's get started and let's create that Barcelona pavilion. So I don't have a DWG file or 3D model or something like that of that pavilion already at hand. So the only thing I found is an image. So let's use that image as a start. And therefore we go to Insert and load that image into Revit. If we would have a DWG file, we would use link cut, or if we would have a 3D model, a Revit model for example, we would use link Revit or link IFC. Nonetheless, let's go with our image and find the floor plan of that very pavilion and just say open and place it somewhere with the canvas. And the problem with images is that they don't have a real scale. The scale might be something of 1 to, I don't know, 10,000. Let's just real quick check it out, how long one of those walls is. I just select, real quick back again, I just deselected. So I select that image and I click on here under the Modify tab and to measure between two references. So I just click somewhere here and move over there, and this is something like 36,000 millimeters, which is 36 meters. Let's real quick update our units. We go to Manage and we will find the units under, I guess it's where was it again? Over here. And in here it says length is in millimeters. We don't want them to be in millimeters. We want to have them in, let's say, meters with 2 decimal places. it looks something like that. We don't need a unit symbol. We don't want to suppress trailing zeros. I think it's fine for now. Let's check out how it would look like. Let's go back in here again. Measure between two references. I start somewhere over here and I go over there, and it says 36.8880 meter. That's fine. And I don't know the exact dimensions of the pavilion, so let's just go with 50, just to show you how to scale images. So I select that image, and under the Modify tab, there's a command called Scale over here. Shortcut RE. I just click in here, and what it wants is I choose a starting point, let's say somewhere over here. I choose an end point somewhere over here. And then I want to define if it goes larger, the distance between those two references, or it will be enlarged. And I want it to be 50 meters. So I just move a bit to 50, or I could also go in here and just type it into my keyboard, 50, press enter, and then that image has been scaled to 50 meters. So let's just use that for the moment. You can see the image is not that crisp. That's because of the resolution of that image, but that's fine enough for the moment. What I want to do, or what the topic of this tutorial is essentially, is how to create families, or how to place objects, or how to model in the end, how to create a model. That's the topic. And the very first thing I want to do is I want to place a wall. And in order to do so, I just go to Architecture and I choose the category. The category is very important. Revit needs to know what kind of element you want to use. We choose wall, the category wall, just click in here, and then the next thing what we are going to do is we choose the right family and type. Since this is a system family, and I showed you in the very beginning in the theoretical part, with system families we only have 3 tiers. The family and the type is of the same tier. So as you can see, it says generic, the generic wall, that's the construction type, and the thickness is also in here, which is a type 200 millimeters. If I click in here, I could choose a different family. Those are predefined objects done by or created by Autodesk. I just go with the 200 millimeters for the moment. And still, before we start sketching our wall, we define the location line, and I always prefer to use finish face exterior. I wanted to start at level 1, which is fine, and I wanted to be constrained at the top at level 2. And that's it for the moment. And after we have done that, let's real quick check out our drawing options. If I want to create a straight line, or if I want to create a rectangle right from the get-go, or a circle, or a polygon, depends on your design. In this case, a straight line makes the most sense. So I just choose a line, and now we can start. I choose my starting point. I just click somewhere, here at the very corner, and I drag my cursor right to the end point without clicking or something, just choosing, for example, the end point over here, and click again and say okay. So now my wall has been placed. Or what I could also do, if we just real quick undo it, again, same straight line and so on, but instead of moving my cursor over to the end point, I know the dimension already, and I know it's 8.5 meters. I could just go to my keyboard and just type it in, 8.5. We get an error message. Why is that? Because I typed in 8,5. It's because we have set the units in there like that. we could just close it now and say, okay, next time we say it's 0.5, and then it's fine. And you see our wall has been placed. But I tend to rather use commas instead of points. So I just go real quick back to image, to manage, project units, and change it down here to this syntax, simple digit grouping. I don't know how it's called actually. I just choose that second option over here, and I just draw real quick another wall and type in 8,5. See, and now it works with comma instead of a dot. So let's delete them real quick again, because I want to show you another much faster workflow. Again, architecture, wall. Yeah, the wall type is fine. The properties are also fine. But now I want to place multiple walls. And in order to do so, I click on chain and see what happens now. So again, same workflow. I start here. I move over, or I type it in, 8,5. And then I can immediately continue to draw the next wall. So I can just go over here. And I could go with the next one and the next one and the next one. Right now, since this is Barcelona Pavilion, we don't have that many walls. So I just click on escape to deselect that command, once to just deselect that wall, and twice to deselect that whole command. Okay, so we have 2 walls placed. We need another one over here. And I'm a bit lazy, I don't want to go back in here again, say wall and so on and so forth. I just right click on that wall and say create similar. And once I select create similar, it will have the same wall type and it will have the same properties. And now I can just go in here, snap that endpoint or starting point from the wall I've already placed, snap it, and start to create the next wall. And as you can see in here, because our location line is set to exterior, it's how to say, it's mirrored. Let's say we want to mirror that wall. It's not the exact location line we want to use, and instead of deselecting it again and so on and so forth, I just press space on my keyboard, and space mirrors our wall. Okay, so now it's fine. I just go to the very bottom of that wall, place it somewhere over here, and create another wall, and it's fine. Twice escape, and I've deselected that command. Okay, what I tend to do, or what I really like to do, is to check it in the 3D view to really see, to really get an idea what I've done so far. And I can go to my quick menu over here and click on default 3D view, and as you can see here, those are my walls. Just by pressing shift on the keyboard and my mouse wheel, I can pivot around my elements, my objects. And it looks quite good so far. The 2 levels you see here are my levels. If I would move up that level 2, my walls would move up accordingly, since all my walls are attached or are constrained to that level. See? Now I made it real quick. You might be wondering how I selected all those walls real quick without using my, guess it's framing? I don't know what it's called in English. But if I want to select a multitude of walls, I just hover over one wall, and once it has been highlighted, I can just press Tab on my keyboard, and it will toggle between multiple options of selecting elements. In this case, the first option is select a chain of walls. you can see at the left bottom over here what I have currently, or what I'm currently selecting. So right now it would be a basic wall, generic. Once I press tab, it would be a chain of walls or lines. If I click on again on tab, it would be the shape handle of my generic wall. And press it again, and then it's again my wall. So again, hover over with your mouse or with a cursor above an element and click on or press tab to toggle between different options of selecting that element or multitude of elements. Okay, once I have found my option to select, I just click, and now all my walls have been selected. I press WT on my keyboard to tile the windows, and you can see they are also, my walls have also been selected within my floor plan, since they are all the same wall. They are the same object, and I just created different views of that same wall. So once I select or modify, for example, those walls, they will be updated and modified within every view which you might have created already. Okay, so we created that 4 walls. Let's continue real quick and create a couple of more walls. Or as I can see here, we have a different width for our walls. They are probably not 200 millimeters. They're a bit thicker. Let's update those walls and make them a bit thicker. So what I'm going to do now is I just select that one wall. And what I could do now is I go in here in our family selector, let's say. I could choose a much thicker wall. For example, 300 millimeter. And check it out. Yeah, it's a bit better. Let's measure it real quick. And it's something like 45 centimeters. You can see it within my dimension, my temporary dimension, or you can also see it over here. There's also length displayed. So as I know now, that wall must be 45 centimeters. Again, I can go in here and check out if I already have that kind of wall. And as I can see, I don't have it yet. So what I need to do is I need to create a new type. And in order to do so, I just select that wall, go to edit type, and now this is really important, duplicate it first. Every time you create a new object, a new system family, let's keep it that way, you need to duplicate it first, because if you don't duplicate that object, all the things you might change within the type properties will change all the other instances of that type. So if I would change now that generic 300 millimeters wall to 450 millimeters, all the walls I've already placed maybe within my model would change as well, although they might still be at 300 millimeters. So to go back again, let's duplicate it first, change the name to 450 generic. You can also see that this is a system family over here, but that's not that important right now. We go to structure and edit, and in here we can change the value of our thickness to 45 and say okay. Okay, and see now that wall has been updated, and we still have our 300 millimeter wall over here, which is still 300 millimeter. All right. So let's update those other walls as well. I can just go in here and select them one by one, for example, and change them within the type. And now they're also 450 millimeter. Or to undo it real quick, a much faster approach would be to just right click on one of those elements and say select all instances. Let's say visible in view, visible in that floor plan. And now we have 3 walls selected of that type, and we change all those 3 instances to 450 millimeters as well. And see, now all of them have been updated. Let's continue with some more walls real quick, with some interior walls here, the partition walls. I just do it again, like selecting the category wall, go into my type, choosing let's go with 150 millimeter masonry walls, generic. Base constraint is fine, top constraint is fine, and I just choose that starting point over here and that end point over there. Escape once to deselect that chain and start again at that starting point. Pressing space on the keyboard to mirror that wall and moving right next to our end point. My view is a bit small. Let's maximize it real quick. I just press TW on my keyboard and place some more walls. Basic. I go for 200 millimeter now, since this probably is a structural wall, I guess. Okay. There's another structural wall over here. And I'm a bit lazy now, I don't want to place a wall one by one. I just select that wall and copy it. Selecting it, click on the copy command, CO on your, as a shortcut. And it's what's important right now is you need to first, I think in AutoCAD it's the other way around. In AutoCAD you choose first your command and then the element you want to copy, for example. In Revit you choose first the element you want to modify, the wall, and then you press on the command. And now Revit knows you want to modify that element over here. And now if I want to copy it, I just choose let's say the starting point I want to move or I want to copy, and I just choose that that starting point of my wall, that corner of my wall, click on it and say the copy of that wall is supposed to be starting here. See, it's a bit longer. I could go in here and say, okay, this is now not 8.5 meters, it's 5 meters, let's say. And I don't want to do it. I want to have to I want to trim it just on one side. So again, I just select that wall and I just drag that bubble over here, over there. Fairly easy. I will do the same now for that wall. So again, that wall has been selected. I click on copy and I move that starting point somewhere over here. And now I say I want to rotate it. So still selected, click on rotate, and I want to rotate my wall by its middle point, and I just choose a starting point. I can click somewhere wherever I want to and just click once and then say the end point is by 90 degrees, and it will rotate around its middle point by 90 degrees, or just real quick undo it. I can select it, again rotate, and I just click somewhere, it doesn't really matter, and type in 90 on my keyboard, and it will do the same. Now still my wall is selected, I just click on move, starting point, end point over there, dragging my endpoint to extend my wall to 7.5 meters. And let's check it out real quick in 3D mode. Okay. Okay, let's go on and let's create a slab. And it's more or less the same workflow as when you would create a wall. The only difference is once we click on floor, we enter the sketch mode. And in sketch mode, only certain commands are available, such as moving, copying, all that kind of stuff. Besides that, it's kind of the same. You choose your family type, in this case generic floor, 400 millimeters. You decide on which level it's supposed to be, level 1, and you decide the drawing options. Normally, the first option is always to pick walls, which is automatically selected. And pick walls, as the name says, is you go in here and pick a wall to define the outer boundary of your slab. And as you can see, that pink line over here, this is what defines your boundary of your slab. What we could do is we just click once on escape, and we could do them also manually. Just click on a straight line, and we start over here and move that pink line, that boundary line, to the end, which is, let's say, here. And same as I would draw a wall, there's a chain behind that, as you can see in the options bar. So once I confirm the end of one, let's say, line, I can continue to draw multiple lines. And I could do it really precisely, or I could just go in here and sketch them real quick, which I usually prefer to do. Like this. And after I'm done sketching my boundary, I just go in here and click on Trim Extend, or TR, on your keyboard. And I start trimming that boundary. Revit wants you to create a closed loop in the end. You need to create a closed loop in order to get a floor. So every time, like in here, boundary lines might overlap, I can also really quick click on here on some lines, TR, see, to see better the lines I already created. Every time lines might overlap, Revit says something has been done wrong, and it asks you if you want to quit sketching or continue. Sure, we want to continue, so I trim that line to close the loop in that corner. And that line over here we don't need anymore, so I just go in there and delete it. And over here I can just drag and drop that line to be a bit more precise. Same over here. And I think it's fine enough. Let's add another 2 more lines here. Click on escape, press TR on the keyboard and extend that line. And if I undo it real quick, you select first the end, the boundary of your extension, and then you select the line that's supposed to extend. See? Alright. Once I'm done with that, I just click on that green check mark, and I've created a slab. Sometimes a bit too hard to see in the floor plan, See? So I just go into 3D view and see there is my slab. Now we have a different issue. We cannot see the image anymore because our slab is overlapping our image. But that's not big of an issue. We just select that image and say in the options bar foreground, and then it's visible again. Could also do it a bit differently. Instead of switching it to foreground, we could also go to our display options and say wireframe, which would have the same result. Alright, let's check out real quick a section to see how it works. Right click on that section and I could go to view, or if I want to use the project browser, I could check out, okay, I just created a section, click on that plus sign, and over here we have our section we just created, section 1. And this is how our pavilion looks like in the moment. There's still some cleaning up we need to do, because we probably might have some sort of build-up in that wall. We will do the build-up later on in the tutorial. But it might be that the insulation might go further down the line and slab might move more into the inside. So if we want to modify that slab, we could just double click on it or say edit boundary. Because we are right now in a section, we cannot really edit it. So Revit asks us to switch the view to a floor plan. And we do that by going to the floor plan level 1, which is suggested right now, and say open view. And we modify the boundary of our slab. And we can just do it real easy by dragging and dropping that line like this. Or we could do it a bit more precisely by using the offset command. And the offset command works like this. You could click on offset, you define the distance, let's say the installation has something like 18 centimeters. So I say 0.81. 18, I mean, and I don't want to copy it. And once I've done that, I just hover over the line I want to offset, and you see a dashed line over there, which is the preview of where my line would end up. By slightly moving your mouse, you switch to the left or to the right. See? And I could do that one by one for each and every one of those lines, or I could do that for all of them by hovering over a line and pressing the tab button on our keyboard. And then it would do it for the whole chain of our lines. Right? And I'll say OK. Another thing, or now in the section it might look a bit weird because of those thick lines. This thick lines is because we have to join our elements, our walls and our slab, and they need to be of the same material, which probably is not the case right now, but just to show you the join command, I just select the wall, click over here to join geometry, and join two elements. Oh, there's of the same material, so then it would really combine or join those two objects, and it looks a bit more cleaner, a bit more clean. Over here it will not work, it will just thinner that boundary line because they are of a different material. As you can see here, here's some sort of insulation, I guess. So it will have a thin line, but they are joined. What we could do now is we could just use that slab we already created and copy it to the level 2 in order to get a roof. Just to show you how it works, I just select that slab and go over here to copy the clipboard and then say paste to selected levels. And then I want it to copy to level 2. Say OK. And now I have the same object with the same properties, with the same type, just in another level. So if you have a multi-story building, this is the fastest way to create multiple slabs and multiple levels. Okay, on we go with curtain walls. And the difference, or what is a curtain wall essentially? The difference between a basic wall, like that one over here, and a curtain wall is that you have a partition in a curtain wall, which means you can set grid lines, you can set posts, you can create curtain panels, which you can't do in a basic wall. A basic wall is essentially a brick wall or a concrete wall. So let's get in there and let's switch to our floor plan level 1. And we're going to create that curtain wall over here. So same workflow as with a basic wall. We go to architecture, click on wall, and we choose a curtain wall. We just click in there, define the base constraint, which is level 1, which is fine. The top constraint, which is level 2, which is also fine. And then we choose our starting point. Kinda hard to see, so I activate my thin lines, or TL on the keyboard as a shortcut. Click on it. Still hard to see, but doesn't really matter. We snap to that endpoint of that basic wall. Click once, move all the way to the left, and click the second time to define the endpoint of our curtain wall. Now I could go on and create a second curtain wall, which I don't want to do. So I just press on escape twice to escape the command, and I check out the 3D view to take a look at it. So this is our curtain wall right now, which consists of only one glass panel, where we can find or define which kind of panel or which are the elements within our curtain wall. We select that curtain wall and go to edit type. And in here you can see the curtain panel is a glazed panel. We can set the vertical and the horizontal grid, which are both set to none, which means we have no partition in there yet. If we want to have some sort of partition, we can, for example, go to vertical grid layout, click in here and say I want to have a partition defined by a fixed number, let's say, and click on OK. So now, as you have seen, we have a certain partition in here. If I would change it to, let's say, 7 or 8, the curtain wall will adjust according to my number of grid lines I want to have in here. We could do the same for the horizontal grid. So we need to go back to edit type and say we also want to have a horizontal layout. And this one is not defined by a fixed number, but by a fixed distance. So I say the spacing 2.2, let's define it by 1.8 just for the moment and say OK. So what happens? Now, as you can see, one grid line has been created, and if you're going to measure it, therefore I go to my floor plan and create a section in front of it. So I have an elevation of that curtain wall. While click on that section, say go to view, and now I can see my curtain wall in an elevation, and it's much easier to measure the distance. So to To measure the distance, I go to my quick menu, or what I could also do, I go to annotate and select the aligned dimension. And now I want to see if it's really 1.8 meters. See, it's 1.8, and there's another 1.8, and the rest is 0.2. And if I now would change the overall height of my curtain wall, change it to unconnected, and then I'm able to change the value of the unconnected height from 3.8 to, let's say, 2.5. Apply, and then would update according to my new height. So I still have that 1.8 meters, and the rest of my, let's say, panel is then 0.7, which is fine. The next step, what we are going to do is we will add some posts in there, posts in millions to be more precise. And to do that, I just jump right back to my 3D view. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to move it. Again, I select my curtain wall and I go back to edit type. And in here I can define my vertical millions and my horizontal millions, which is the same as a post. So for the vertical millions, I say there's interior type. And the interior type has a profile of, let's say it's a rectangular million with the dimensions of 50 to 150. And the border type 1 and 2 are circular millions, 25 for each of them, and say OK for the moment. Okay, so now, as you can see, my both border types are circular millions with a radius of 25 millimeters, and my interior type is a rectangular million of 50 by 150 millimeters. And now the interesting part is I could change the distance for the millions. Therefore, I select one of those millions and I do that by hovering with the mouse over one of those millions, then press tab on my keyboard until I can select my rectangular million, and then I go to edit type. And in edit type, I could say there's an offset for that million. And that million, let's say, has an offset of, let's do 1 meter. And OK. And see, now all those millions of that type have moved by 1 meter from the curtain wall. What I could also do in the edit type is I could change the width. So instead of having 0.025, I would say it's double the size to 0.05. Same for that value. And I change the material as well on here. They are not aluminium posts, they are, let's say, wooden. Let's check out if I have woods in here. Cherry wood, yeah, sounds good. Fine by me. And let's also change the thickness to be something like 50. Let's say 50. Say OK. And now there, wooden posts with a dimension of 50 by 0.1. Another thing I could do is I could rotate those grid lines, or what I'd say, those grid lines along those posts. And I do that by changing the angle of my horizontal grid or my vertical grid. Let's just do it for the vertical grid. And I say it has an angle of 20 degrees. And see, now the whole grid line, all my vertical grid lines have rotated by 20 degrees. Another part I want to modify is the curtain panel. And if I want to choose to modify all curtain panels in here to not be a glazed curtain panel, instead I want to have it to be a concrete panel, I just go to edit type again and say the curtain panel. It's not the glazed one. It's, let's see if we have a concrete type already. No, it does not look like that. But we could also choose a basic wall we want to put as a curtain panel. And I just choose, it does not make much sense, but let's say it's a brick panel. Just click in here, say okay, and see now I have a brick curtain wall, or a curtain wall with brick curtain panels which have a 20-degree angle as a horizontal grid. So this is completely possible. It might not make much sense, but you could do that if you want to. So let's put it back to normal and let's create a real curtain wall which looks like something more realistic. So to have a glazed panel is completely fine. The layout is a fixed distance, and I want to have a partition by 1.35. Yeah, that sounds good. And the horizontal grid is also by a fixed distance, and we just say it's 2.2. The interior type of my millions is, let's see what we have in here, 50 by 65, which is fine for a moment. And we have the same type as a border million. We could also define horizontal million, which is essentially the same. I think we just need one for the border type, and there we would choose also the 50 by 65 and say okay. Let's switch the angle back to 0 degrees, and now our curtain wall looks like this. Okay. Since there are some more curtain walls in that pavilion, what we're going to do is we just select those walls, those basic walls, and we just exchange the family to be a curtain wall. So we select that wall and those two walls, and we go to the family selector, scroll down and choose the curtain wall. It can be very easy, see? And checked again if we have a horizontal grid line in here, which we don't have. So go back to that type, properties, and I just delete that horizontal grid. I mean, okay. Let's continue with the stair. And as you probably know, the Barcelona pavilion is not a particularly good example of a multi-story building, and therefore not a good example to have a real staircase. But anyway, let's just pretend as a multi-story building. So let's go to architecture, and again, in here you find everything 3D related in Revit. So that means a stair, which is a 3D object, you will find under architecture. And once I click on it, I enter sketch mode. So similar to the one we have already seen for the slabs, I will define a precast stair. So you can find precast stair in our family selector, as well as an assembled stair, for example, or in a custom place stair. But we go with a precast stair. And before you start sketching, it's really important to set all the properties. So let's check the base level, which is level 1. That's fine. Top level, level 2. So we always model a stair from level to level, not from the first level to, let's say, the 5th level, but always from 1st to 2nd, from 2nd to 3rd, and from 3rd to 4th level. There we can see that our stair height is of 3.8 meters, which means if we set the desired number of risers to, let's say, 20, we get a riser height of 19 centimeters. It's quite easy. Revit just does the calculation, which means 3.8 meters divided by 20 risers means 19 centimeters in riser height for each riser. We can also define the tree depth, which we would set now, let's say, to 29 centimeters. And then we're done for, let's say, the overarching properties, but we still need to define the properties for our one. And this we can do in here. Let's switch from stair to run. And in here we define the location line, which I tend to set to exterior support left. We could also set it to right or center. I like it to have on the left support. And what we also need to, or what I would recommend to do, is check begin with riser and uncheck end with riser. I think the rest is pretty much clear, pretty much fine, and let's start. What I'm going to do is I define a start point somewhere here, and then by panning my cursor from the right to the left, I define the number of my risers. So if I go all the way up to the left, it says 20 risers have been created and 0 are remaining. If I go to the middle, let's say, it says 11 risers created, 9 remaining. As I want to create a stair with 2 runs, I say, okay, let's create the first 10 by clicking, and then I move my cursor up to somewhere over here and create the rest. Okay, you can see this is our stair. I just click on the green check mark to say it's fine, and then a stair has been created. This is what it looks now, our precast stair with 2 runs. And what Revit also does, it creates some railings on top of it. Pretty much standard. I could select them and exchange them, for example. Or I could just go in here and delete them. The next thing I want to do is to modify that stair to be a bit more precise. So I just double click on that one, on that stair, and go back to my level 1. And what I want to do is I want to define the gap between the 2 runs. Therefore I go to the Modify tab and choose my align dimension. And what I want to do is I want to have a gap of, like, let's say 25 centimeters. Therefore I just select one of those ones, the one I want to move, and click in my dimension, say it's 0.25 and enter. And then that one has been moved. What I also want to do is I want to offset the second one from the first one. So I just select that second one and say move it by 1 tread depth. And then I say okay. Let's check it out in 3D. And now that stair has been updated. Okay. So now we imagine we have a multi-story building. And what I want to do is I just take that stair, and pretty similar as I already have shown you in the slab part, I just copy it and paste it to align selected levels. So I go to the Modify tab and click on here on Copy to Clipboard. And after that I just say Paste, Align to selected levels, and I say level 2, for example. And okay. I now have 2 identical stairs at the identical location in different levels. So it doesn't really matter how many levels you have. If you have, for example, a building with 100 levels, you would copy it to 100 levels. Okay. Is the door. And to place a door is rather easy. All you need to do is you go to Architecture, and here you will find the command door, or DR as a shortcut. You just click once on the command, and then it's more or less the same approach as with every other element or with every other object in Revit. You select the family you want to have, In this case, M single flush, it's some Autodesk family, and I choose a type which is defined by its dimensions. So what I want to use right now is something like, yeah, this one's fine, the first one. And once we have selected our door type, we just need to hover with the mouse over one of those walls over here, and then we just click, and that door will be placed in that wall. It's not possible to place a door outside of a wall. So for example, if I hover with the mouse somewhere in that empty space, you see that stop sign, which means you cannot place a door in here. After we are done with placing our doors, we just press on escape twice, and then we can select that door, and we can flip the door according to its opening direction. So if I click on that double arrow over here, it will flip from the left to the right, and if I click on that flip, the opening direction will change as well. If I want to create a different type, because my opening has a different size and different dimensions, I can do so by going to Add a Type, duplicating that door, and say I want to have something like 1010 millimeters by, let's say, 225. Click on OK, and in here we'll find our two parameters, which are height and width. So as I said, the height is 225 and the width is 101. Click on OK. And so we have created a new door type, and now we can exchange that new door type with your old door types. So just select one of those door types, click in the selector and choose that new door. It's as simple as that. See? Let's check it out in 3D. And here we have our doors. The floor plan looks pretty good so far. What's still missing are the columns. To place some columns, we just go to Architecture, Column, and we choose Structural Column. And again, same workflow as with every other object, we choose the white column. And as of now, we just have an W-shaped column, which doesn't really fit the columns we have in here. We need circular ones. So what we need to do is we need to load a new column family. And in order to do so, we just click on here on Load Family. And browse throughout our library. And in here we'll find columns. And we choose the material. We need concrete columns, and we want to have a circular one. And what we can do now is we can load different types of those circular columns into our project. And I have not measured the radius or the diameter of that column. So what I'm going to do is I just use that one real quick. And now that new family has been loaded into our library, into our project, and we can just go on here and place it by clicking into our floor plan. We received a warning which says none of our columns are visible in our floor plan right now. It's probably because of the height. And we will find that the column is placed on the wrong level, and this is because we have not checked our properties first as we should have done. So let's check out the properties, and it says the base level is level 1 but minus 2.5 meters, which is wrong. So this needs to be 0 and the top level needs to be level 2. And now it looks fine. So we go back to our floor plan. We see our column is now in here. I think 30 centimeters is fine. And I'm going to copy multiple columns. Bit tiresome to place or to copy every column one by another, or one by one. So what I'm going to do is I select multiple columns, and as you can see, I've not only selected my columns but multiple elements. So I just go to filter and I check only my structure columns, which are 4, as you can see here. And now I've only selected my columns, and those 4 I can copy from that start point down to the end point. Let's check it out in 3D. And this looks pretty good. Okay, next up is the roof, and the roof is quite simple. The only thing we need to do is put a rectangle on level 2 in that area, on the living area, and therefore I'll go to level 2 in my project browser, and now I choose a roof. And I have different options how to create a roof. I could create it by roof print, by extrusion, or by face. For this tutorial I go roof by footprint, and again we enter the sketch mode. Again, you always recognize the sketch mode by seeing that green check mark and that red cross. And all I need to do is, again, I choose my roof family, and I say okay, and generic roof 200mm is fine for that moment. It's supposed to be on level 2, which is fine, and the rest is pretty much okay. And as a drawing option, I want to create a rectangle roof. So click on rectangle, and I say my roof, again, sketchy for the start, covers that area. And as you can see, those small triangles in here, they tell you that this line, that boundary line over here, has a slope by 30 degrees. And if you don't want to have a slanted roof, you could just go in here and say, no, it does not define a roof slope. So let's check out first how the result might look like, and we click on the green check mark. And now we have that funny type of a roof right now, where one side has no slope at all, whereas the other 3 sides have a slope of 30 degrees. I can change it manually if I want to, the slope, by dragging that arrow over here. But since this is Barcelona Pavilion, we don't have any slope. So what I'm going to do is I edit my footprint. I select all my 3 boundary lines which have a slope. And I say in the options bar, they don't define a slope, which is the same as in the properties.